Welcome back. Over 110 countries now support a probe led by Australia into the COVID-19 outbreak in China. But China's saying the investigation should wait until after the pandemic is over. Let's welcome retired Army Lieutenant Colonel James Carafano for his reaction to this story. Great to have you on, Colonel. Many of the countries calling for the probe are either in recession or on the brink of a downturn. China is saying, yeah, it's going to give $2 billion to help the global response to this. When you saw this story, what was your first reaction to it?
Oh, this is big league stuff. We're going to see a lot of this. The international organizations, the fight over that's the new alley Foreman, where the great powers are really going to be duking it out for influence. And we see that happening in real time here. I got to tell you, people can debate whether President Trump should have threatened to pull the money from the WHO. But the reality is, when the U.S. stood up and started to criticize the WHO and demand transparency and accountability, a lot of people took that as cover to stand up and demand likewise. That's why we are where we are today. So the Chinese are very interesting. The Chinese want the World Health Organization to investigate itself, which would only mean that that would be a whitewash for China. The dividing line here is the U.S. and others who say, look, we want this to be an independent investigation of the WHO.
Yeah, Japan is also saying do an independent investigation. You know, it's now even Russia is now saying, yes, probe the origins of the pandemic starting in China. All 27 countries in the EU say do it. India, Japan, the UK, Canada, New Zealand, Indonesia say probe it too. But why the Democrats' silence here in the U.S. on it? They say talking about this is just a distraction.
Well, it's obviously not a distraction. Great powers, Russia, China, they're vying for influence in international organization and trying to use them not to get their views in international norms, but to push international norms aside so essentially they can achieve the policies that they want. We have a bold demonstration of this in the WHO, the China essentially using the organization to advance China's interests. There are international health regulations that were passed after China failed to meet its obligation during the SARS pandemic. Though if China had followed those guidelines for this, countries would have had weeks, maybe months warning, but they violated it because China didn't perceive it in their interest. So the big dividing line here is between countries that want to have China investigated, and then some just want to have the WTO investigated.
The WHO. Here's the push behind the scenes. That's okay. It's about who is going to be the medical superpower. It's about laboratories around the world trying to dominate drugs and trying to dominate vaccine research. Vaccine research is really dangerous. Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory has a study out there. It's not peer-reviewed yet. MIT and Harvard, though, support is saying, you know what, media? Don't rule out yet that this COVID-19 virus did, in fact, break out of a laboratory. Don't discount that story yet. It could have happened. That's what's going on. Dangerous safety standards at these laboratories doing these vaccine research. The president is now saying the WHO is basically problematic here, as you're pointing out, Colonel, and he's agreeing to fund the WHO now, but only up to what China is now paying annually. Let's listen to this.
China paid $40 million last year, and we've been paying $450 million a year for many years. Somehow that doesn't work out too well. So I was thinking about bringing our $450 down to $40. And some people thought that was too much. So we're going to make a decision fairly soon.
Colonel, your reaction?
Yeah, breaking my heart here makes it sound like I'm picking on my favorite British rock band. But the reality is he's getting to a real problem here. Only 15% of the World Health Organization's budget goes to pandemic response. They're wasting money doing a whole bunch of stuff they don't need to be doing. So he's trying to force them to actually be what they need to be, which is a force to deal with the pandemic. I think that's the right answer.
Okay, great to have you back on, Colonel. Come back soon. We love your insights and perspectives.